Hi, I'm Kira and I work with schools in Hennepin County to help them set up organics and recycling programs. Today we're going to focus on sorting in the cafeteria. At lunch, we sort our waste into 3 categories: recycling, organics, and trash. This video will help you learn which materials to put in each bin. First, let's talk about why we recycle. Items we recycle can be made into new products. For example, this metal can be made into another metal can, while this plastic bottle can become carpet. It's also an easy way to help the environment. Making things from recycled materials saves energy and reduces pollution. Organics recycling is another great way to give back to the earth. Food scraps and compostable paper like napkins are collected at school, picked up by a truck, and taken to a compost site. At the compost site, yard waste like leaves and tree branches are mixed together with the food scraps. This mixture is laid out in long piles that are 10 feet tall. That's as high as a basketball hoop. In less than a year, the pile breaks down into a material called compost, which looks like dirt but has a lot of nutrients to give back to the soil. Organics recycling is important because it gets our food waste out of the trash and puts it to better use. Now let's learn what goes into recycling, organics, and trash. We have some high school students here to help us.
Before you go to the waste station, take all your food out of plastic wrappers and sort what's left on your tray into trash, recycling, and organics. This will make things go more quickly when you get to the bins.
Put your fork and spoon into this bin. Dump any leftover milk or liquids into this bucket.
Why do I have to empty my milk carton?
Have you ever smelled sour milk? We don't want to have the recyclers deal with it. Along with milk cartons, empty and recycle juice boxes, cans, and plastic bottles. However, put the juice pouches into the trash. If you haven't done so already, empty any remaining food from plastic cups onto your tray and put the cup into the recycling.
Put any plastic wrappers, plastic forks, or plastic spoons into the trash.
What about my plastic bag?
Ziploc bags can be reused or thrown in the trash. If you're not sure where an item goes, throw it in the trash. Dump your food and napkins into the organics bin. Your compostable spoon can also go in the organics. It's made from plants, not plastic.
Is my string cheese compostable?
Yes, you can put meat, fish, cheese, and yogurt in the organics recycling. Don't throw any plastics or foil in the organics bin. We need to keep the compost clean since it is used in our gardens.
The last thing you need to do is stack your tray. If there's no place to stack your paper tray, it can go in the organics bin. It's as easy as that.
Help us protect the earth by
Composting and recycling.
They say it's important to recycle plastic bottles. But why? The answer starts underground or the ocean floor, where crude oil is pumped up through the ground and sea in long pipes and sent to an oil refinery. Likewise, natural gas is extracted from rock formations deep under fields and waterways. Crude oil and natural gas are raw materials. So next, they'll go through a process using energy and water to alter their structure, starting with a chemical reaction. Hundreds of thousands of small molecules called monomers combine to form a polymer chain. Millions of polymer chains are formed at once, creating a mass known as a resin. Resins come in different shapes and sizes. Pellets like these are what's used in plastic manufacturing. Using high heat and pressure, the pellets are melted down and injected into the mold of a small tube known as a preform. Once heated back up, air expands the tube open like a balloon in a blow mold. And as it cools down, finally starts to take shape. That's when it looks like the bottles you see in stores and vending machines. It takes a lot of work and materials to make one single bottle, which is why recycling is so important. Putting a bottle in the trash means it will likely end up in a landfill, where these useful resources won't get a chance to take on a new life. Littering is even more destructive, wasting natural resources and creating a negative impact on our communities, wildlife, and environment. But recycling a bottle enables these resources to keep being useful. After being put in a recycling bin, plastic bottles get hauled to a materials recovery facility, or MRF, where recyclables are dumped, put on a line, and sorted. Materials move through a disc screen that separates paper from containers. Metals are separated by magnets, and plastics are sorted by visual inspection using a combo of machines and people. Plastic is then sorted into categories by type. Once enough bottles have been accumulated, they're compacted into giant bales and sent to a plastic reclaiming plant. There, they're shredded into flakes. Some facilities use a float sink process to separate the different types of plastic. Ultimately, all the plastic is washed thoroughly to remove contaminants and prepare them for their new life. The flakes are then melted down into resin pellets to be used to make new bottles or other cool things. The simple act of recycling a bottle gives it a new life, preserves resources and energy, keeps our planet healthy, and makes a big impact.
Calgary's garbage story starts with the stuff we throw away and why a lot of it is just too good to waste. That's why Calgary has a 3-bin system.
Blue, green, and black, right?
That's right, Cody. Your blue recycling cart, green food and yard waste cart, and black garbage cart all work together to deal with most of your household waste in an affordable and responsible way. By separating out our waste, we can turn old materials into new products to save resources and protect valuable landfill space for future generations of Calgarians to use. The proper sorting that you do at home makes a big difference. Let's talk about what goes into your black cart first.
Like things that can't be reused, recycled, or composted?
Exactly. Once garbage goes in your black bin, it ends up in the landfill, where it gets buried forever in the ground, along with 30 million tons of trash Calgarians have thrown out over the past 50 years.
Whoa, that's a lot of trash.
It really is. While we're fortunate to have 3 city landfills in Calgary, they aren't the best place to put all our waste.
How come?
Because landfills are expensive to operate and maintain. Today's landfills have engineered systems in place to protect public health and the environment. These protective systems make sure the stuff that ends up in a landfill stays in a landfill, and it doesn't contaminate our land, air, and water. Our landfills are filling up, but Calgarians can control how fast this happens. We don't want to bury resources that could be turned into new products.
So what's the big deal if recyclables, yard waste, and food scraps are buried in the landfill?
Well, let's look at our food scraps and yard waste first. In nature, there is no waste. When an apple falls to the ground, it breaks down and adds valuable nutrients to the soil. But that's not what happens when an apple ends up in the landfill.
What does happen?
Food and yard waste doesn't break down into soil, compost, or anything useful in a landfill because there's no oxygen. Worse yet, food scraps and yard waste in a landfill creates some nasty consequences, like liquid leachate, as the moisture from the food and yard waste oozes through the garbage, picking up other contaminants.
Ew, leachate sounds gross.
It sure is. The city needs to collect and treat this leachate to prevent contamination of the groundwater. While the food and yard waste sits in the landfill, it also produces methane.
Isn't methane a bad greenhouse gas?
Yep, and methane is 25 times stronger than carbon dioxide when it comes to causing climate change.
That's not good. So using the green bin is a great way to reduce my family's impact on the environment.
You got it. But it's not just food scraps and yard waste that we need to keep from going to landfill. When you garbage paper, cardboard, plastic, tin, or glass, that resource is gone forever. The raw material used and energy it took to make that packaging or container is wasted. But by sorting materials properly into your blue cart, they can be recycled and reused in a circular economy, keeping materials in use for as long as possible. We also reduce the pollution caused by having to mine, log, and process new resources.
That must help the environment.
Just by recycling paper and cardboard in the Blue Cart program, we're saving over 1 million trees a year.
I bet we're saving energy too.
We sure are. It takes 95% less energy to make new aluminum cans and tinfoil from our used cans and foil than to make it from raw materials. The same goes for plastics and glass too. Calgarians are now composting and recycling more than ever. More materials now end up in the blue and green bins compared to the garbage, keeping valuable resources from being lost forever in landfills. In fact, single-family residential black cart garbage has dropped in half since we started using blue and green carts. By using blue, green, and black carts at home, you've saved a generation's worth of landfill space.
Good work, Calgary.
So, through reducing, reusing, recycling, and composting, we're making a positive difference today and for our future.
To make sure the right things end up in your blue, green, and black bins, go to calgary.ca/mywaste.
New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg has a new plan to make the Big Apple greener. He wants city residents to collect all table scraps and uneaten food and recycle it into compost. The goal is to make food composting mandatory. Time Magazine senior editor Brian Walsh writes about energy and the environment. Brian, good morning.
Good morning.
To start with, Brian, just how big a problem is this?
Well, food waste is actually a big problem in the United States. About 40% of the food that's actually purchased in America, it goes to waste. You know, we don't actually eat it. It ends up in the trash. And that's a problem because when food actually does go to a landfill, it degrades. It can actually release methane into the atmosphere. That's a climate gas. And of course, you know, it's also filling up the landfill, and that costs money as well.
New York is somewhat notorious for not being good at recycling, but the mayor is really trying to change that. He's trying to do something about food recycling.
Mm-hmm. It's true. New Yorkers are not good at recycling. We only get about 15% of our waste actually goes from landfills to recycling, and that's historically always been a problem. Now he's tried to crack down on glass, plastic, and paper recycling. Now he's adding food waste as well. He's really trying to get basically as much as possible, get that waste out of going to a landfill, which in New York means spending about $80 a ton to ship it to other states and get it to some kind of recycling facility.
Obviously, there are environmental benefits to doing this. Are there economic benefits as well, significant ones to a city the size of New York?
Yeah. The city believes you can save about $100 million if this is actually done mandatory and actually it carries through in the right way. You know, because basically you're not paying to ship it away, and also you can use some of this both to create fertilizer and compost. Also, you can actually use some of the gas that's created when you do degrade this food waste can be burnt for electricity. It's called biogas, and there is a plan the city has to actually create a plant that would actually create sustainable energy using this kind of food waste.
Oh, that's incredible. So it has almost a second life.
Exactly, yeah.
So you brought, Brian, a little prop with you. We saw it in the video there, but how does this program actually work? You're basically taking leftovers.
Right, exactly. I mean, the idea is you're going to sort of separate out your food waste. That means any, you know, your leftover food, your leftover scraps, what have you, any kind of organic waste you create, and put that here into this the city's going to give you. Just as the same way that you would sort of separate your plastic, your glass, your paper from the rest of your waste stream. You take this, and eventually you'll sort of take you to a central collecting point, maybe in your apartment, or it could be on curbside pickup, just as you do with recycling now. I mean, that's the plan. And of course, this is going to be, over the next couple of years, is going to happen. And it's important to remember, of course, that Mayor Bloomberg is going to be gone in about 6 months. So
Right.
it's going to be someone else's job to actually carry this through.
Right. There are big cities that do this already. San Francisco, Portland, Seattle. Is it working well there?
Yeah, I mean, San Francisco has been doing this for 16 years. They've been collecting food waste, turning it to compost. They actually sell that compost to local vineyards for fertilizer. You know, it's the cities you couldn't expect. It's those West Coast cities that generally are on the edge when it comes to green behavior. New York City will be the first, I think, city of this size, certainly on the East Coast, to do it. But you have over 100 communities around the country that have some form of municipal food recycling. So this is really something that's on the grow.
I have to say, though, when you explain the program to me, one of the natural thoughts I have is, does it get smelly? Like, if this is in your apartment, especially in a tiny apartment in New York,
Right.
I mean, how do you combat what could be the smell of leftover food in this bin?
Right. I mean, that's the idea. This does seal, so hopefully that'll keep some of the scents out. But it's an issue. You know, I mean, in New York, people live in smaller apartments.
Right.
You have less space for everything. That means now you have one more bin, and one more area you have to separate your trash out. So you've got, you know, one bin for your glass and your plastic, one for paper, one for the waste you can't recycle, and now one for food scraps. That's going to be a problem. And as we said before, you know, New Yorkers not all that great when it comes to recycling. So
And they don't like hassles either.
They don't like hassles as well. And so, you know, Bloomberg is really asking a lot of the city to do this. You know, he's also tried the stick approach as well. The sanitation department has put more people on the beat of actually policing this and finding people if they don't do it. So it's not just the sort of carrot of being good for the earth or being good for the economy, but I think he'll also try to use the fines as well.
Yeah, you might get a ticket for not composting. Right. Brian Walsh, thanks very much for being with us this morning.
Thank you.